has been telling us that for a long, long time, that things don't exist the way they appear. And that may not seem like good news, but it does mean that nothing is permanent, fixed, stuck. That everything can change. So if we don't like this moment, it won't last long. There'll be a new moment. So let's begin just by paying our awareness to just what appears to be this very solid piece of matter called our bodies. And bring our mind to being present with this body. And rejoice that we have such good conditions to have a body that's somewhat working, able to do what we tell it to do. We have the means to join a class of other folks. We have a mind that's pretty capable of understanding. We have what is called a precious human rebirth or a perfect human rebirth, according to the Buddha. And this is because we have the faculties to be able to listen to teachings. We have most of the resources that we need, perhaps even all the resources that we need, and many that we just want. We're relatively safe, comfortable. And we're using our time in a very beneficial way by showing up to a class like this, where we're not just drinking our coffee, reading the newspaper. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But we're also spending some of our time thinking about the bigger picture. How to work with our minds and our bodies to be of benefit, not just to ourselves, but those around us. Trying to figure it out. Not to just have a small tunnel vision, but to keep expanding our perspective. And how wonderful that is to be able to do that. So just take a moment to generate or remember the reason you showed up. And try to set a positive motivation, a positive intention for using your time well this morning. Perhaps it's to be more at ease. Perhaps it's to understand your heart and mind a little better. Perhaps it's just to join a community. But whatever the reason, Set an intention to honor that reason. To try to stay open-minded, open-hearted, or just even present during this class. So we'll start with a prayer for others. Recite the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And now for those who are comfortable with reciting refuge prayer, those of you who consider yourselves Buddhist, or just whoever's comfortable reciting this prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. How are we doing? How was your week?
Terrific.
What a surprise. Jack's our terrific person.
Mine was kind of hectic. I had a lot of energy coming at me right in my face. And it gave me a great opportunity to practice. I don't know what I'd done without the teaching. So I'm very grateful for that.
How many people, had opportunities to practice this week? How many people had their minds rise up in some not particularly calm way, How many people had the opportunity to help someone else, So, and maybe those of us who not too sure whether we had the opportunity to help someone else, might want to look at, reframing their lives in terms of the way you think about it. Because of course, if you did any work at all this week, if you have a job, that contributes to the community around the world. We forget that we're all interdependent, that we're just, we can look at it from, the big picture kind of thing, like, the air pollution, water pollution, this pandemic affects the whole world, then we forget that all the little things we do all day long are part of that world. It all has impact. It's how our lives are interwoven together. It's just not always obvious. But we're interacting with others. We're eating food that's grown by others. That's part of the, so not only is it, there are farmers out there somewhere making it happen, but there's also the people who transport it. Who clean it, who package it, then it gets transported, then it gets sold in a store. So many people are affected by your purchase of food. It's probably countless. And that's true of our clothes. So many people involved in the making of fabric. So many different things make fabric these days. Plastic bottles are recycled into fabric. Can't get my mind around that either. So, So we really want to remember a simple way to remember that we really are part of the global community. Every single sentient being is part of it. Because anything that we use or consume took countless other beings to exist. And not just right now, but in the past. And for it to exist in the future, all sorts of things have to be happening in the present. So if we think our little lives as, one of 7 billion human beings, can't matter much. That's all anybody is. One of 7 billion human beings, doing their thing. And so we equally are participating in this interdependent existence. So in any way we touch other people's lives, sometimes we forget that our bodies are made of mostly non-human parts. I always forget, I think, the 3 trillion other little microorganisms, make up our body. That's probably not right, but it's a lot. And so our bodies are nourishing them. Our food nourishes them. We are part of the ecosystem. We know that our speech affects others. So how we speak to each other at home, or to others that we don't even know over the phone, or to the cashier at the store, or to other drivers on the road. I'm so glad they can't hear me through, because I'm not the nicest. I don't use the nicest speech when I'm driving, because I'm really self-cherishing and want to get to my destination. But isn't it true that when we drive, do most people of you drive? We might not have done much driving this past year, but we drive. Isn't it important that we're mindful of driving? Isn't that one way that we're like, Jack, you didn't kill anybody on the road this week? That's a very positive thing.
Probably not any people.
Yes, that's right. Any human beings. Yes, but we do kill insects. We do kill small things. And so we want to be mindful of that, that our actions have impact, and we don't have to get terrified of moving It's just that we want to really be aware that in every moment and everything we're doing ripples out. If we could just see the way, sound waves go, if we could just see them as opposed to them being invisible, if we could see the way that, I don't know what it's called, but the way the wind moves, the air, from every movement we make, and then it ripples out, and the fact that really our bodies aren't static anyway. But it's just there's all this constant movement and changing of, electrons or something. So our actions do matter. And just being a little less hooked by this or that can help your impact be more peaceful, be more gentle. I haven't figured out okay, I was looking at the path to tranquility. For this week. These are all quotes from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Ideals are very important in one's life. Without ideals, you cannot move. Whether you achieve them or not is immaterial, but one must try and approximate them. What do you think about this?
It's like when you're driving. It's better to look further down the road than right in front of you. It's better to pick things that are like we were talking earlier about how how fortunate we are, and to be honest, and with this precious human life, and even if I tend to think it is possible, but even if it's not, things are getting better and better. But I tend to think that, even if it takes 1 trillion years, if it's possible to attain enlightenment, like, wow. And that's pretty far away, but it doesn't matter.
So part of this is perspective, isn't it? It is stepping back and looking toward. And that we can, what is it, like Michelle Obama, we can aim high. We can just go high. We can think big. Lama Yeshe used to say, and I didn't know him personally, but I just from reading his teachings and listening to the recordings, it's just this idea that we always think impossible, impossible, impossible. And so we don't try, whereas if we just start with the idea, well, maybe it's possible, that gives us more room. It keeps us open to the possibility of being able to achieve something that if we think it's impossible, there's no movement there. There's no way that's not a starting point, that's an ending point. So one of the ideals, yes, Graziella.
Yeah, I was thinking that I really like that the way I felt is that I have these ideals. I'm sort of a failure because I don't accomplish them. And so I like very much the thought that that I can have the ideals as goal posts and that I can try to accomplish them, but they're better than not having goals at all.
Yeah, that it's not about, it isn't about whether you achieve them or not. It's about the effort.
Yeah, right.
And the direction. You know, like we can work very, very hard to be the best bank robber in the world. But there's a problem with that direction. So we want to think about what we value, what is important, and we want to understand that because everything's interdependent, that it's not enough to just think about whether or not what you do will bring you fame and fortune or whatever it is you're seeking, but whether or not it harms others. Like the truth is, if none of us ever, if no one on the planet, no human being on the planet stole anything, how much would that improve everybody's lives? Everybody's lives, even that best bank robber in the world would never have to worry about, his belongings, her belongings. So what the ideals are matter. That's the most important bit of, of direction. Is where you're headed a good direction. So we have to ask ourselves that, we need to, look within and kind of decide, okay, I'm all caught up with this or that project or this or that wish, whatever it is it going to help me be the person I want to be, help me, whatever it is. We want to really look at if we're just clinging to things that in the long run, if we step back, aren't going to matter all that much about our own peace of mind or our own happiness, but might actually harm others. We want to make sure that we're not harming others on the way of getting what we want. I don't know how to turn the page. I didn't do it.
Venerable Tendron?
Yes, Robert.
This reminds me of the other night when you were talking about refuge, and when you say, what do you seek refuge in? So it's the same thing. I mean, if you seek refuge in, alcohol, I guess, you'll maybe get cirrhosis or something. So it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? I mean, really, where are your ideals? What are you practicing? What are you seeking?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to look at. And this has to, this is something no one can tell you. We can guide each other. The Buddha's teachings can guide us, but we have to go within and, determine this. And I'm trying to get to the next page. And I don't know how. Isn't that stupid? Go to next page. Okay. We're not going to do that one. This is where I was going. Okay, the ultimate authority must always rest with the individual's own reason and critical analysis. this is another aspect of why a precious human rebirth is precious, is that a human brain and central nervous system or whatever is a very sophisticated support for our mind. So the mind's not considered physical in Buddhism, but the body supports the mind. And the human brain versus a mosquito brain is very sophisticated. So we can use our ability to reason and analyze different things. Hi, Bianca. To assess what we're doing, where it's headed, what the outcomes might be. We can really investigate, karma, the word given to, describe the law of cause and effect. We take science class and we learn lots of different things about physical cause and effect in the world. There are all sorts of fun chemistry experiments and electricity experiments and all sorts of things to see, what has to go in. If you've ever had to build something, you kind of learn about, okay, you have the causes that are material. There are certain things you might need in order to build something. And then they have to go and, they have to fit together in a certain way in order to result in a certain thing, and so you kind of learn all the parts of what makes up something that you build. And then finally, all the effort that goes into actually building, all the planning and the effort. Well, karma in terms of Buddhism is just adding another, very important dimension, and that is our consciousness. So the way we think, the fact that we have, consciousness has a tremendous, it's, in Buddhism, it's the most important factor in cause and effect, that it's what determines our futures is how we think and how we act based on how we think. And we can just see it even in just, very obvious ways. You couldn't have an orchard of apple trees if nobody came up with the idea to plant an orchard. All the way we grow crops is because of consciousness. Not because the wind carried the seeds somewhere, and just created a forest. It's different from that. It's a mind seeing a possibility that if we do this, then this can result. And so when you're looking at something like ideals, these are qualities of the mind and heart being the same word in Asian languages. So it's this, it's whether it's what we consider moral, but basically in Buddhism, it's just, we want to do no harm. That's the minimum. And if we need a selfish reason to do no harm, it's because harm is the cause of suffering. So if we do harm, the result of that is going to be our own suffering. So really investigating our own experiences in life and looking at them from this perspective, starting to look, trying to understand that if we look back on our life and our experiences and those things that we regret or rejoice in, and kind of, look at what our mind is doing around those things, we start to discover things like, I really regret the moments that I was, unkind to someone else. It's never really got me anywhere. for this, little momentary satisfaction of something, releasing anger or frustration, ends up still being something that 40 years later I can remember occasionally. Something will arise. Oh, I said such and such to so and so. That was terrible. That's a long impact for a few words. And we probably all can remember things that we said to our siblings or our partners or our children. So we want to use that information to investigate our choices. And we want to get so good at it that it becomes the habit. So that in the moment, we can choose whether to say something unkind or not say anything at all. Because we've thought about it and recognized that it is not in anyone's interest to be unkind. So one of our ideals might be to never use unkind speech. What other information plays a part in something like that? So our own regret of having said something unkind in the past plays a part in us thinking, well, maybe that wasn't such a good habit to develop, unkind speech. What does it feel like when someone's unkind to you? We also have that information. So we can use our personal experience with pain and suffering to be as a guidepost to not wanting to treat others that way. The old golden rule thing. It's just, but it's with perspective of understanding that we really are interdependent. Our words matter, our actions matter. What we consume matters, what we, throw out matters. Everything matters. But we don't have to get uptight because of that. But we do want to develop these ideals to go towards so that we can feel like we're on the right track. And we can use our memories of situations to assess when were we on the right track and when were we weren't, when were we not on the right track, and use those to inform us. Yes, Robert.
Hello, I'm sorry. I was thinking something, I didn't say it, but then Veronica had just said the same thing. So our memories serve to remind us of we have regrets for things we've done, even like you said, 40 years ago. How do we impart that to our daughter that doesn't really have memories like that?
Well, of course, this is one of those things we can model. We can talk about. We can share our own stories. That's what fables are about, right? So we can share our own stories. If in an appropriate conversation arises, and we can say, oh, I had a similar situation happen to me, and this is how I handled it, and this is how I feel about how I handled it now. So that, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just half. I think it's half. Yeah, I tell stories. It's half of them to relate. It's almost like, well, I don't know. They get that fresh mind, I guess.
We can't impart time, but we can think about, they may be able to recall things in their own life where they did something and wish they hadn't. almost everybody has that experience because we make mistakes. So it isn't that, it doesn't matter how old you are. It may matter how functioning you are. Maybe a 5-year-old can't do that, you know, but it's really interesting that it is a process of trial and error, isn't it? Learning. And sometimes we might not remember what we did, but we remember what someone did to us or said to us. And we can use that, how we felt about that, whether it's good or bad, as a guide for how we want to, what we can do in the future.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Holly.
What if what if there's like some sort of pattern in your life, like an interrelational or emotional pattern that it's like a blind spot. You have no clue why it keeps coming up. You've done everything that you can to try to address it. So to me, the karma makes a lot of sense, except that you just don't know what the source of it is. It might have been in a past life. So, and you've spent so much effort trying to address it and it doesn't change. So from a Buddhist perspective, is it just go on and don't worry about what the source might be, or just keep practicing and purifying?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, if we keep running into situations again and again, like say, like I'll just use some example, that they often use. Say someone, every attempt they have at business fails. They have good ideas, they have bad ideas, all range, but it doesn't matter what they do, they just don't succeed. The Buddhist explanation for that is they've created the cause not to succeed in some past life, so we're not going to remember the reason. But due to our understanding of cause and effect in general, we might be able to accept there's a cause for this, and this is the result. And so you just kind of think, well, that tells me that I need to always treat others fairly. That, one cause for businesses not succeeding could be that I cheated others. You just kind of guess. So you don't worry so much about the fact that you're not going to be a success in business, or maybe not in this life, but you keep trying to take your, care of your responsibilities, blah, blah, blah. And you try to treat others fairly. So it's not like so we can't necessarily fix things. In fact, most things we can't fix. We can just make better choices in this life so our future results are better.
Yeah, you can't always even fix the mind state that is distressed when the pattern keeps coming up, it seems to me.
That just takes time.
Yeah, that's what I was guessing. Okay.
I mean, that's where you just have to keep going. Mama, wait a minute. Okay. You just have to keep going with, that going back into your inner wisdom and recognizing that this thing, this pattern, whatever, I can let it become something I cling to fixing and have it distress me every time, or I can start to loosen my grip on it and try to roll with these things, because no one's life doesn't have problems arise. No one, unless you're a Buddha. So this is part of cause and effect, that we are reaping the results of past things we've done, both good and bad. Until we really understand how things exist and have a direct perception of that, really experience that, the emptiness of all things, we will not purify all the actions of our past. So the results come up. But the less we, it's just sort of like, okay, Geshe Gelik used to say, he couldn't understand why people got so upset about their credit card bill arriving. He said, so you buy this thing, you're enjoying this thing, and then, like a bill comes and you have to pay for this thing. Why do we get upset about that? This is sort of the same thing with problems that arise. It's because we've made mistakes in the past and now we're experiencing the results, So no reason to get distressed. We just handle it the best way we can. Does that make sense?
Thank you very much. Yes. Sorry, Lama. Thank you.
Lama La, you're up. Oh, no, are you on the phone? Lama, you're muted.
Yes. Hi, Venerable Tendron. With the question of why, I've thought about this like umpteen billions of years, that I think my thoughts on that is that I don't know about the rest of, but I noticed.
Don't worry about that. Just what? What's your?
That the word why is sometimes used incorrectly. Like, why is my mind? Sometimes the why, or getting to why I'm thinking like that, it really doesn't matter why. I think sometimes there's the assumption that if you knew why, it would change.
Right, that we could fix it.
Right, and because in Buddhism, once I understood, it could be like if you see a child going out, to say, why and where are you going? If they didn't tell you, that's a correct thing. But why my mind, or why people's other minds, like you said, unless you're Buddha? And I don't think it, I think in Buddhism, I have found that there is an answer or a practice that you can change these patterns and you don't even need to know why they keep coming.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It's not always important to know why, because we can give it one flat answer. What would that be? What would be the answer to everything about why we suffer?
It could be a lot of things, but in Buddhism,
No, it could be just self-cherishing.
Self-cherishing or
ignorance. Because we don't know what we're doing. And we're doing everything based on self-cherishing, for this idea that it'll be good for me. It'll be good for, I have to do this to protect myself. That this is our ignorance, that we don't really understand how we exist. And so the Buddha said at the root of our suffering is this ignorance. And so we do things based on this ignorance. And what we want to do is keep increasing our wisdom until we can understand how things exist. And then we will quit acting from ignorance. We'll be acting from wisdom then. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Lama La that, why doesn't always matter. It is helpful to explore. We want to explore cause and effect of the mind. We do want to see that if we keep, if we're always looking for someone to be a different way, we can see that, that our disappointment might be arising from expectations. And we might want to do something, about changing the way we're thinking. But we're not, until you're Buddha, or at least a high level of Bodhisattva, you're not going to remember all your past lives and be able to track this. Plus, it'd be a huge waste of time. You'd be spending all your time trying to connect all the dots between past mistakes and current results. And we have better things to do with our time, like change the behavior we're doing now so that we don't experience this result in the future. So thanks, Lamo.
Thank
You know, so it's just, it really, okay, over here. And you're muted.
So
Now you-
so we don't eat so much meat, and then not so many animals could shuffle. So I don't eat so much meat,
Good.
and then not so many animals could shuffle.
Can someone translate for me?
Yeah, he said that if we don't eat that much meat, less animals will suffer.
Absolutely. That's correct. So that's one of the things we can think about. We can think about how do animals suffer? And one way they suffer is that we eat them for food. So the less we eat meat, the less animals will suffer. That's absolutely correct. Thank you. What is your name?
Harry.
Haley?
Harry.
Harry.
Yeah.
I have very old ears.
Harry.
Thank you, Harry. So this is exactly how we come up with our ideals. We think about, oh, I don't want animals to suffer. What can I do to have them suffer less? And this is what we can do on all, you know, how we interact with the world. So do y'all want to discuss this with each other, or y'all good? And you know. Okay. This is I guess Fridays. We are born and reborn countless number of times, and it is possible that each being has been our parent at one time or another. Therefore, it is likely that all beings in this universe have familial connections. So we're all part of a giant family. How cool is that? So, you know, I mean, I just think it's, you know, we know that we treat and think of the members of our family in different ways than the way we feel about strangers or coworkers. You know, that there's something about our family members, probably because we so dependent upon them when we're babies and young children. And, you know, so our parents are very important to us, or our caregivers are very important to us. Our siblings are the people we learn how to fight with. Also, they're the people that we turn to when we're, you know, bored at home, you know, and want to have somebody to play with, you know, when we're children. So it's this very strong, and of course the Buddha would say we have a strong karmic connection, a recent karmic connection with the people whose you know, that we share a family with. And if we really use our logic, if, you know, our minds have been around for beginningless time, that there's no beginning to them, then we've had time to be in the families of everyone more than once. And so we felt these ways about every sentient being. They might be born a mosquito in this life, but they've been your brother or sister or mother or father in a past life. I had a friend who said, he actually was the tutor for a course I took in Australia, in Chenrezig. And he said once his mother died, he felt completely differently about swatting a mosquito. It just kind of hit him that, oh, if the Buddhist teachings are correct, this mosquito who seems to just really like me might be my mom. You know, so we think twice about just harming something just because we can and it's annoying. just like our mother was at some point. So if we can just keep our minds open, our hearts open to the possibility that this person we're interacting with right now has once held a very important role in our lives, where our survival depended upon them, you know, it can kind of shift things about how we decide to respond to them, in what way we respond to them. And also in the way we respond, you know, like if someone does an action to us that we're not thrilled about, you know, we're more able to just let it slide, not think it's a big deal, if we hold that person in our heart. You know, if we don't, you know, if we just accept this as just one, you know, just a person, just like me, who makes mistakes, doesn't know what they're doing, who doesn't understand that our unkindness or our harm that we do to others is going to result in our own suffering. And so we don't get so hooked. It's our self-cherishing that gets us hooked. Oh, I don't want this conversation to go this way, or I don't like what they just said to me, or I don't agree with them, blah, blah. We get hooked because we're keep putting our point of view, our self, our self is central. And, evaluating everything around us based on that. And that doesn't serve us well. So why don't y'all, where's our fearless leader? Hi, Nicole. Why don't you break us up into groups of like 4 or something? And people just talk about how thinking of everybody, not believing it. That's not what I'm asking, but just if you approached others as if they at one time had been a close family member, how that might shift things in the way you speak, treat, help them. Do people follow that question? If you don't want to be in a breakout group, then don't go. But just say hello to each other. And
okay, great. Thanks, Venerable. For about 10 minutes, 5 minutes, what do you?
Well, do 10 minutes, because then people could actually say hello to each other too.
Okay. All right. So everyone just click on the link and to join the room, or don't click on it if you don't want to join, and I'll set the timer.
Oh, I've got to quit sharing my screen.
welcoming back. I know we haven't done the breakout rooms in so long.
They're nice to do. I'm glad we did it. That dog, I love it.
Hi, Marianne.
Venerable Tendron, you were okay.
I figured it out. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there you are. I think.
So what kind of things came up for you? Like in our group, Robert brought up the issue of, well, how is it that, like say this person who's, was the relationships are so different in one life to another. So that was one thought about it. Does that kind of cover it, Robert? I mean, in a very vague sort of way.
Well, I was just saying, we have negative and positive karma for everything. Why does one supersede? Can we offset it somehow? Like, can we?
Yeah, by the way you behave.
Yeah. Well, again,
it's my job. Yeah.
but that ties in also where the final thing you just said about with your father, the get over. Like, I don't speak to my mother. Like, I don't think it's a big deal. I'm not angry, but am I supposed to? Am I creating negative karma by not doing it?
No, it's really about the mind. Some of
Okay.
us don't have a strong karmic relationship with our parents of this life. It's more about whether or not you're grasping onto a negative state of mind about them, or you're unkind because they try to reach out to you and you don't, those kinds of things. I kept showing up at my parents' house with the expectation that I'd finally get the parents I wanted. If I'd quit going, maybe it wouldn't have been any big deal, but I didn't. I kept going because I still had, a desire for something. And finally I realized that was the mistake. That if I wanted them in my lives, I just had, to let go. I had to accept that I wanted them in my life and let go of my desires for it to be different. And amazing how, they just seemed to be much nicer people when I did that. Instead of, I had a scorecard, oh, there he is again, the unperfect parent. So anyway. So what kind of obstacles or successes did people share? I'm playing with a mala.
Well, today being Mother's Day, it really does bring it all back home that everybody was our mother at one time. And that's something I really keep forgetting a lot. So that was a great reminder. I'll have to just apply that more often. We talked about dealing with difficult people and trying to remember some redeeming qualities, or trying to remember that maybe in another life. I try not to think about what I might have done to some people, the ones that I've got in my life that are so difficult now. So, but yeah, it was a very positive interaction. So,
and this is something that really does take practice.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's something that we can just, when we have a few moments, like anybody has a few moments, I have a few moments. And when I have a few moments, just just remembering an experience and trying to see how would I think about it differently, or how would I have acted if I had seen this person as either my mother or my father or my own child, or my brother or my sister, or my best friend, whatever seems to fit more easily. But it's just this way of being able to cut people some slack. you know, without getting into all the other parts like karma, like we created the cause to be treated this way, you know. So it's this, you know, opportunity to, you know, just be able to breathe in for a moment and look at the situation from another perspective. And it's really helpful to do this, you know, when you're not in it to begin with, you know, just to kind of play with it a little bit. And then there are times, you know, where it's just a simple matter of you asking yourself, have I ever acted this way? You know, where was I coming from? You know, if I've ever acted like, you know, a selfish idiot, or if I've ever acted like, you know, I'm the king of the world or queen of the world, if I ever acted, you know, foolishly, you know, and I almost never can go, oh, I've never been like that. So it's kind of humbling, but it's something we can use as a technique, a tool to give us a bigger perspective, to step back. Like we were talking about when we were looking at the Book of Joy, you know, that one of the things to have more joy in our lives is to have this bigger perspective, to be able to step back and not get so hooked by whatever's happening in this immediate moment. You know, that we can step back and breathe a little and, you know, relax. You know, and remember, you know, things like, you know, that words don't actually kill us. You know, but that our actions can. You know, that's what cause and effect's about. If we slug someone because of something they said to us, I kind of can't imagine any of us doing that now, but you know, that response is just going to keep that cycle going with this person. You know, and is that the relationship you want to continue? You know, better to just walk away from the relationship than just slug them in the nose. Not a recommended activity. Yeah, Robert.
So that ties in what you were just saying. So for instance, like say people reach, for instance, not to get, it's not a story here, but my mother's reaching out, sending letters. I mean, it's killing the woman that I won't talk to her. I'm not angry. I just don't want to talk to her. Am I, what's the right quote? Veronica nags me like crazy. It would be nice for her, you know, she's getting up there.
You could do it for her.
I just don't have it in my heart. I'm not angry. I'm not anything. I just don't want to talk to her. I mean, so, I mean, what's your...
Well, I mean, that's just something you want to keep sitting with and thinking, okay, would I ever want to be treated this way by anyone? You know, is this, you know, and I don't think I mean, we don't owe people. Just, you know, it's not like we owe people, but this person did give you life in this life. You know, if they hadn't taken care of you, even in the most minimum way, you wouldn't be here. You know, you would have moved on to your next life. So it's just, you know, but it's this, you know, it's this understanding that our rejection of someone, you know, will have a result also. But we have to make our own choices. We have to, you know, use our critical analysis, our, you know, our inner wisdom to know whether or not, you know, if, you know, it's like, there's just no right, you know, right answer here. You know, it's, you know, if you know that if you ended up reinitiating the relationship, you'd end up angry, you know, and unkind, you know, maybe not going that direction is good. If it sets up false expectations, these are not easy situations, but it will have an effect. It's already having an effect in this life for that person, for your mom. But, you know, it's again, we have to bring all the pieces that we can, you know, to inform us of what actions we want to take. So, you know, it's just not, and it's really good to, you know, if there, you know, to be able to know in our own minds that it isn't anger. It is, you know, because we do choose. We have relationships come and go throughout our whole lives, you know, and it's okay. It's part of things. The impermanence of relationships.
And
Yeah, Lamo.
yes, on this subject that Robert touched, okay, I'm in the position of his mother, okay, with my son. I've also realized, because I've asked so many men, do you call your mother all the time? And they look like I have a zillion like heads. But since my son is far away and I'm here, and I think it's a natural.
Well, we don't need to get into
Yeah,
that.
but like I don't, you know, he doesn't answer me sometimes for months. And I think it's quite, you know, he'll go, I'm not mad, the same thing. But I think he hasn't looked into because it's hurting. You know, it's
Yeah, and all we can do is with our side. You know, it hurts. If it hurts you, then we have to deal with that aspect of it. You know, I created the cause for this experience, and it is not pleasant. So may I not treat others this way, so that, you know, I don't experience this in the future. It's very difficult parent to child, because you also feel, although, you know, we're talking about grown-ups here, you know, this idea that I have to teach my children something, but they're, you know, that's probably past that time, you know.
well, it's just a great concern,
Yeah.
which I have for other people, but you know, I think sometimes it shouldn't be, but sometimes because he is my son,
Yeah.
although he's 43, the word worry is not the right thing. But we used to be so close that it's the lack of, and the only thing I know what to do is go back to the Buddhist teachings.
That's right.
You know,
and the
the
Buddhist teachings, we can't fix things like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
But we can take care of our side of it. Look at this. Is this a grandchild that has just appeared?
Oh,
Look at Jack's picture.
where's Jack? Where's Jack?
Oh, no. I'm sorry, I get distracted by small children and animals. So. Oh, she's adorable. Oh my, that her older? Oh my goodness, adorable. Okay, so, but this is the thing, is that, you know, there are two sides to every story, of course. There's usually actually probably many more sides than that. And so we have to understand that that's in play. We are interdependent. Our actions have effects, you know, and, you know, it's, you know, the Buddha said that being respectful towards our parents is very meritorious, for the simple reason that they gave us life, and they gave us a human life. And a human life is very precious, and we have good conditions, and we, you know, so we can actually, you know, benefit others. We can become, you know, possibly liberated in this life, enlightened in this life. So, you know, it's you know, it's hard for us in our world with that so much has so many good conditions, to imagine that the mere act of giving life is something special, you know. But, you know, in the Buddhist teachings, you know, that, you know, without, it's a kindness that we're alive, that our parents didn't just say, oh, you're too much work, you know, like when we give away a pet, say, oh, you're too much work, so we give you to the pound, you know. So if they still call it the shelter, but it's, you know, it's but we don't have to, but again, it's a two-way thing. Everybody has their own karma going on, you know. So we have to just reflect on our choices and you know, make ones that we're comfortable with, that we, you know, that we think, you know, this is okay, you know, this is the better choice of perhaps, you know, bad choices. So because some people need to walk away from their parents, but we can still understand that we're alive because of them, you know. So very complicated, our relationships with our families, you know. It's not it's in general not easy to but it's a great, you know, it makes it a great condition for practice, like most things. So yeah, but but you know, so thanks for bringing those things up. That's because this is our life. This is what we're dealing with. All right. So speaking of all sentient beings having been our mothers, the pandemic has, you know, the coronavirus is really bad in India right now, in Nepal. These are the places where many of our, you know, the Tibetan teachers live, you know, the Tibetan monks and nuns practicing in South India. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who's our spiritual director of this center, started a monastery and a nunnery in Nepal, and it's there. I mean, he's there at the time too, but he's vaccinated. But, you know, so Geshe Sherab, who has taught at our center, was in the hospital. I think he's out of the hospital now, so he's doing better. But, you know, so we really, you know, on Saturdays, we do the IMI, which are the organization for the Western monks and nuns that are part of the FPMT, do a 24-hour practice led in 30-minute increments by different monks and nuns to say prayers that we were told might benefit. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama says doing Tara praises is helpful. So I thought maybe we could do a few of those. Let me find that. So for those of you who are not familiar with these practices, it may feel weird, but you know, this is the idea of trying to engage the activity of enlightened beings to help us, you know, to just, you know, do that. So here's a picture of Rinpoche way back when he was a younger monk, painting a Tara statue, or opening the eyes of a Tara statue. I think that's how they refer to it when they paint the eyes on a Buddha statue. So this is the mantra, Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. So it makes your mantras more powerful if you say a verse of praise first. So we'll do that. Mother Tara, who liberates from samsara, who liberates from the 8 fears. Ture liberates from sickness. To the liberating mother, I prostrate and praise. The Tibetans have a strong connection with Tara, particularly white Tara. When they went into exile with His Holiness and were living in Buxar in India, they recited a lot of Tara praises and Tara mantras to help them with their fears. They just run away from their country. They had no land. They had nothing, no resources. And so they were depending on others, and they were living in rather harsh conditions, and they weren't used to the climate. Many of them died. But this really helped ease their hearts. So there's some, there's power in these sounds. So then we'll just recite the mantra, and I'll recite. We can just recite to ourselves as well. So you can picture, try to have this picture that there's this, caring Mother Tara with us, willing to help. Tara Chitari Tara Soha, 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 Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Chitari Tara Soham, 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 Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Chitari Tara Soham, 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 Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Chitari Tara Soham, 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 Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Chitari Tara Soham, 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 Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Chitari Tara Soham, 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 Tara Chitari Tara Soham. Tara Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Chitari Tara Soham, Tara Tara Soham. So just imagine that light rays have been emanating from Tara's heart and reaching all of us, reaching all sentient beings wherever they are, filling them with all the causes for happiness, purifying all the causes for suffering, bringing exactly what's needed in this moment, all temporary and ultimate happiness. And just dedicate this effort to all the suffering beings, whether it's directly from being ill with this virus or indirectly from the fear of catching this virus, from the lack of resources for those who are sick, all the people who are trying to help those who are sick. The poverty that's arisen from all the lost jobs. It's all the different ways in which sentient beings have suffered due to this pandemic. May they benefit from our prayers. We say these prayers for them.
Thank you, Venerable Tendron. I just wanted to say two things too before we dedicate. Just a reminder to everyone that you're kindly offering to lead the meditations moving forward. So every Sunday at 10:30 via the same link, we'll do a 25-minute meditation. And then also I just want to give everyone a brief update because people are asking about when we're going to reopen, and that is put on the back burner now. We're continuing to talk about reopening, but we really don't have a date in mind. So we'll continue to keep everyone posted on that. Thank you.
So Broward County still